Ladies and gentlemen, please do come and take your seats here in the plenary session for the key takeaways session and the prize draw.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hey, it's good. That's good. I think if we could help from our colleagues to invite all the audience to come close to the stage, because there is a chance of winning great prizes around here. So when you come closer, your chance is increasing. You're winning. You will be right away winning. So if I could ask our colleagues at the booth, demo booths, to invite the rest of the people to win prizes and enjoy our TikTok, which will summarize what we did today and how we could take it home as an actions. Would it be possible maybe we could dim the lights at the back end to show that it's a cooler place at the front? So today we had an amazing tract of over 20 presentations that covered different dimensions of the transformations. And also we have over 20 booths of interactive demo that showcase what DELL EMC is capable of doing, different aspects: security, workforce transformations, big data, and plus our alliance and partners. And maybe we could thank our sponsor for today that they made this happen, and by participating in the event to make this a winning event. Excellent. I think maybe, so we have this. At the end of the session, we're going to have an interactive fair drawing for the winners. How many prizes we have? Where is Lena? I think we're going to have multiple prizes. So if you're lucky, it means that you're going to be a winner for today, inshallah. Excellent. What time we should start? Okay, I think we'll start by inviting our senior panelists to the stage so we could give them a great welcome. Fadi Yousuf. I think if you could align with your, yes, so you could align with your picture. So this session is designed to be the summary of the whole day. So what we did, we picked one of the best speakers, and I'm going to raise the expectations that they're going to summarize what we did learn today and what is the call of actions. And I will start by introducing our senior panelists, starting by Mr. Walid. Mr. Walid is the pre-sale regional director in META region. He has over 20 years of experience from understanding the business, delivering the technology, and delivering the results. So during the discussion, he will show us his experience, what did work, what didn't work, and what are the actions to really put the transformation in action. And also Mr. Nigel is the CTO for the Converged Platforms and Solution Division. He's one of the elite in the region. I enjoyed the talk with him and attending number of mega events with him. He shows and talks about specific numbers and how things in a global level did work. Also, Mr. Fadi, who example the digital transformations, what are the data, insights to build the transformations. So it will be a summary of the whole day discussions. Thank you, Mr. Walid, Nigel, for being with us today. We'll start our panel by requesting Mr. Walid reflection. What did we learn today? How did you see the whole discussions? Our attendants would love to summarize and get what does transformation means.
Very good. Thank you very much, Faisal. And it's a great pleasure and honor to be with you. This is my fourth Saudi forum, and this is the event that I make sure that I attend every year. All right. Excellent. So what I have taken away from that forum today is a number of things, actually. Number one is that every time I come here, I do feel that IT has never been closer to business like it is today. And I've seen this, and I will tell you how did I actually measure this. I measure this through the interaction on the exhibition center, through the side discussions and then stand-up discussions, and the meeting that we actually get every day or throughout the whole day during this forum. Everybody, and what is specific about this year is this: everybody is coming with a very optimistic spirit about the future. They see that IT is the enabler for the change in this world, and the change that is happening in the kingdom. So absolutely, if IT is not the main topic in the discussions, in some of the initiatives, it's definitely the enabler behind these discussions. And let me maybe drill down a little bit on this. The difference between IT in the last 15 years and IT today is that in the last 15 years, IT was mainly focusing on what we call maintaining the systems of records. The ERP, the data warehouse, and the inventory, and the core applications, billing, core banking, and so on.
Data entry department.
It's a systems of records, all right, which was very good. So automating business processes through systems of records. What is happening in the next 15 years is that IT will become the enabler for the innovation. It's not the innovation in itself. I just want to make sure we don't overstate or give the wrong impression about the importance of IT. But it is in the heart of the innovation, but it's the enabler of the innovation. And people have realized that today, with the digital capabilities that IT can offer, they can do certain things that they were never able to do before.
Absolutely.
So this is I would say, the overall impression that I have taken from the discussions we had, from having meetings with one-on-one, and we can elaborate more as we move forward with the discussion.
Excellent perspective. Right. And we'll move to Nigel. What is your take in these sessions, and what did pick your attention that you need to emphasize on?
Okay, so Faisal, first of all, again, thank you for the invitation. Thank you all for attending and for being customers and partners of ours. My observation, Walid, let me pick up on something you said. We come from a world where IT developed a system of record. That's what we did. And we architected networks, and we architected systems that generated a system of record. As IT evolved, as we moved to a world where IT is an increasingly something we carry with us and rely on, we move from a system of record to a system of engagement. All of you have projects, all of you have done work where you've taken your business process, you've put it in software, and you put that code onto devices that you don't own, but which is how you deliver your experience. So you've moved from a system of record to a system of engagement. What we are all embarking on now are systems of insight. Because when we talk about Internet of Things and we talk about analytics and big data, two observations. You're right at the very beginning of this. We are right at the start of what this will mean. And a lot of the use cases today don't make sense. Some of them need much better refinement. But as you move from a system of record through a system of engagement to a system of insight, the changes that we as IT professionals have to go through, the things we have to do to lead our teams, to lead our companies, will be dramatically different. And there are times when we're still figuring out what this means.
Excellent.
So the journey ahead is a road. In times it's not particularly well lit. But as we move through these changes, these are some of the things that we're going to face. And during the course of the next 20 or 30 minutes, I'm going to talk some of the people and culture things that I think you have to do as you move from system of record through system of engagement to system of insight.
Excellent.
And that's my sort of initial thoughts about what I've seen and heard.
Excellent. Thank you, Nigel. And with this, Fadi, what did you see in this today's sessions? What did something that you would like to focus on or build on?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here, and for the audience. I think it was a very interesting day.
The voice.
Just bring it to.
Yes.
Is it good now?
Can you hear Fadi?
Yeah, I think now it's good. So it's been a very interesting day, and I had the opportunity to talk to many people, and I think the main takeaway that I see is there is a mindset change. So I can see truly that there is a shift in the way of thinking, in the sense that most people believe now that software is a tool for competitive advantage. And what I've seen is that most people believe that by innovating, by being more modernizing the way they develop software, they're able to compete better in the marketplace, they're able to be more efficient, they're able to innovate. And I think innovation is a key theme in the Saudi Vision 2030. And I believe that this would be the right step in order to achieve that vision. So this is my main impression from the different talks I had today.
Reflection. Excellent. And then I think if we could, Fadi, tell us from your global experience, regional experience, how, it's a nice catchphrase to say digital transformation.
Yeah, true.
It could mean so many different meanings. For our audience, what does digital transformation mean? How we could leverage it? If I am a CEO, if I am an IT manager, how I could understand or use digital transformation to my advantage? Yeah,
it's a good question. So in principle, it's better to understand also the drivers of transformation. So if you look at why change happens, and I'm quoting from our executive chairman, Paul Meritz. So there are two major forces of change. So one of them is hope, and the other is fear. And obviously hope is a powerful force, but the even more powerful force is fear. And I think we're at a stage where, due to technological advances and due to the proliferation of knowledge, the chances of companies being disrupted is much higher, right? So, and we've seen that if you look at,
Can you give us an example?
Of course. If you look at banks, one of the major driver of change for banks, which are traditional institutions that have been around for tens and perhaps hundreds of years, right? One of the major drivers of change is the emerging fintech industry and small startups that are trying to nibble away at what banks were good at. I think this is summarized maybe in a statement that Jamie Dimon, who's the chairman of JP Morgan Chase, said in a shareholder letter a couple of years back. He said, Silicon Valley is coming, and they're coming to eat our lunch, right? So, and this is very important. So companies are starting to feel the disruption that's happening around them. Smaller, more nimble organizations who have the capability, because of the way they operate, to actually disrupt existing industries. So, and that's why we've seen over the last few years enterprise organizations jump on the bandwagon of innovation. They want to operate and work and act the same way startups do. So one example is Allstate. Allstate is a very old auto insurance company in the US. And the inflection point for them was when they realized that people are able to search on Google for different auto insurance offers, and they don't really need to go through Allstate to get their insurance policies. So that was a major threat. And this drove them to innovate and be able to cater really for what customers want. And if you look at digital transformation as well, there are two aspects for it. So one aspect is cultural, and the other aspect is technological. So the cultural aspect is more focused on, you know, how fast can a process be. So how can you organize yourself as an organization to operate in an agile manner? So this is the cultural aspect. The technological aspect is, you know, how can you take, for example, in the case of software, how can you take software that you have developed and consistently be able to manage it efficiently and effectively throughout the whole life cycle of that software or application?
So, I mean, digital transformation, then it's a must. It's not a business hive.
I think, you know, I think organizations that want to maintain the leadership in their industries, they have to transform. They have to innovate. They have to move away from what propelled them to this existing state. So I think it was Einstein who said that problems cannot be solved at the same level of intelligence that created them. And I think we are in a new era where there are new problems, more complex problems. And the only way to be able to solve them and be at the forefront of competitiveness is to transform.
Excellent, excellent. That's a great insight, Fadi. Now, it's a fact that without taking clear action toward this, it has an implication. Even if you have the plan to move to digital transformation, you can't do it by only focusing on the digital side of it.
Right.
So Nigel, what do you think? What do we need to make this happen?
So the technology choices, excuse me, that you have available to you are relatively straightforward, because cloud is an operating principle, and there are a number of technologies that you can acquire that give you a cloud operating principle. So from a technology point of view, we broadly understand the how we get it done, right? What we struggle with is how we bring our people with us. There's a principle around how you take elements of your workforce and educate them to behave differently, to understand that as the organization changes, they need to change. And there's a piece of organizational theory that IDC have done that lays out 3 broad areas where we as leaders in IT should be focusing. We should be focusing on people who are pioneers. And you can identify those people in your organizations. They're people who take risks. They are people who are naturally led to creating new ideas. And when you put these groups of people together, you genuinely spark the thing that you need, which is people innovation, to create an idea that turns into code, that turns into a service, which is something you can ultimately sell. So in your IT organization, look to identify those people that are pioneers. Then you need to identify those people that are settlers. They have a lesser degree of passion for innovation. They like order. They like the status quo.
Yes.
But they recognize that the value they bring in the organization is sometimes being able to translate what the pioneers are doing to what the folks in the systems of record are trying to manage, right?
Yes.
So you have a pioneer, you have a settler, and you have a town planner. And a town planner writes the rules. They love order. They're often engaged with the regulator. They are often engaged in conversations where the shape that the pioneers take has to have some principles and some guardrails, as the Americans would say, and they provide the guardrails. And historically, we've never demonstrated a path between town planning, settling, and pioneering. The trick is to demonstrate to your IT organization that this is actually a two-way step. If you're bored of town planning and you want to go and try something different within the group of your own IT organization in your own company, remember, people are intellectual property. When people leave your business, intellectual property leaves your business. So what can you do to retain staff by actually showing them a two-way journey where if you're a town planner, you're a systems of records guy, and you want to become something a little bit more innovative, show them how you can actually migrate their role or migrate them as individuals into a slightly more pioneering role. And pioneers don't always like being pioneers. You have to find a way of actually bringing them into the organization. So recognize that people is intellectual property, and recognize that you need to provide a cultural framework that allows these people to move within the extent of IT.
So what we are saying here, Fadi is mentioning that we need to realize the fear and plan for the hope of change, otherwise our business will be disruptive. We need to be visual to identify our teams, to place them in the right frame of mind, either innovation or settlers or someone with a specific job that we need to maintain them. With these lines, Mr. Walid, what do you think, from your wealth of experience, how did you have a real example of a successful IT transformation or digital transformation? What do we need? We need now, we know the business, it's gonna be disruptive if we don't change. We've been selecting the right teams and augmenting them in different roles and responsibility. What else do we need?
All right, that's a very
Tricky
actually
questions.
not tricky question. It's quite an open question, and it might require a long answer. But in a nutshell, to realize what do you need to do to transform yourself, I think my colleagues here have spoken about two things, and I would like to speak about the third thing. Number one, there is a business idea that has to be in place. It's not going to start from IT. Let's just be clear on that. And then there is a change management that has to be in place to actually transform our people to adopt this new change. The third thing is that I also need to make sure my and I will come to the example, but I will just set the stage. Yes. We need to understand where we stand today with respect to a couple of things inside our IT. Number one is, let's ask ourselves, do we have a service strategy within IT?
What do you mean, service strategy?
A service strategy, i.e., how do we, I mean, in the new IT world, you actually consume IT in the way you consume Amazon, and I'm not suggesting that IT will become public, so just to be sure, but you consume IT like a product that you consume from your bank, from your telco, from your e-commerce system, and that does require us as IT to have a service strategy. And in the service strategy, I do not mean that you need to make sure that you identify all the services that you already have in IT and then start drafting a plan around them. You need to identify which services from IT will help the business transformation, and which services within IT are those who are consumed in a very dynamic way, and that requires IT to be quite responsive in provisioning or providing those services.
So the focus is business
So
services.
do you have a service management strategy? The number two is, where are we on the maturity scale with regards to our applications that exist today? And I will spend some time on the applications to also explain the differences between the past and today. And where we are on our infrastructure as well, because there is some transformation and some gaps. And then, how do we structure our IT today, or how should we structure our IT in the future to act very simply like a service provider inside our organization? Okay, so service management, look at your applications. How do you look at your infrastructure today? And how is your operating model? How are you structured today within IT to become the service provider that your business is looking for? Okay? On the application side, and I'll probably build on what Fadi has said. The main difference between the traditional applications and what we call the native cloud applications is, in the past, we used to create one big monolithic piece of code, which is hundreds, thousands of lines of codes to create one single app.
Service.
Right? In the new world, and by the way, we call them the legacy or traditional, and legacy and traditional will continue. No one is saying we're completely, transforming. We will have to keep the balance. So we will actually maintain a bi-model IT. One which is traditional and the other one which is the native cloud application. The difference between the way we develop that monolithic application and the new world is, in the new native type of cloud applications, we actually develop small pieces of code. We call them microservices. And these microservices can be put together in different combinations to create different applications together. And that requires, without getting into a lot of details, a new way of building the infrastructure, because on the legacy traditional application, it's a scale-up game. On the native type of cloud application, from an infrastructure perspective, it's a scale-out game.
Okay.
All right? So there will be an architectural changes that we need to identify from now. So when I mentioned the infrastructure, I mentioned how ready is your infrastructure to host those new applications. Let's be frank, the value in the IT comes from applications.
Absolutely.
Everyone has seen Simon Welch at the beginning. Business only sees the value of IT in the applications, or mostly, to be very frank. But the application will not run properly if you don't have the right infrastructure behind it.
Absolutely.
And then, if you want to run your IT as a service, you need to have a proper service management strategy and a proper operating model that allows you to provision and ask or let the consumers utilize those services in a much more agile way and in a much more efficient way than what we are today. All right? So, having said so, we actually worked with one of the educational...
this is the example part.
This is the example. We worked with one of the educational bodies within the Gulf region. And the first thing we did with them to transform their IT. So they had a huge OpEx. 70% of their annual expenditure was operational cost.
Keeping the lights on.
Just to keep the lights on. And the first thing we did is exactly what I described. We sat with them and said, okay, what is the most critical applications / services to the business? And let's understand also the consumption model of those applications. Are these applications that are frequently changed or modified or require a fast response for provisioning? And we actually sat with them and built that service catalog.
Okay.
And the service catalog, in a practical way, does not actually include all your applications. Because there will be applications that will be modified once or even less than this every year. And they don't need to be consumed in the way that we just described. So we built that service catalog, and then we decided on how we actually take those applications to, either we keep them, or we rewrite them, or modify them, or we completely build new applications, because the new business models require different types of applications, services. And then we built that service catalog, and then we laid down a plan on how we can build an optimized infrastructure to actually host those type of applications. And everything actually was based on software defined. So the software-defined IT gives you that flexibility to be dynamic, to be more responsive from the infrastructure side. We also worked on a plan for the transformation on the application itself, and we worked with them to restructure their team. So it wasn't a discussion around head count reduction or workforce reduction. As a matter of fact, IT, until 2023, at least this is the report I have, will have a 45% shortage in skills.
Oh, that's
just to be clear. It's not.
That's high.
Yeah, so automation will never reduce or replace people. It will just give them the chance to work on higher in the value chain, and then let the other stuff run automatically.
That's scary and promising.
So at the end, we were able to build a service catalog that people, to be very honest, developers within the organization, not the business users, can go to, request services, provision the services, and every service has a life cycle element that is defined within the service request. Once it expires, the service will not be longer available. And then we also modernize the infrastructure to help carry or host those applications. And we looked at the operating model, how we structure the IT to make sure that they are organized today to allow this kind of new way of doing IT. And I'll give you one simple example on that customer. In the past, to get a service provision, assuming that you have all the hardware and software, they needed a cycle of 2 weeks. And why 2 weeks? Because the security department has to sign off. The network department has to sign off and provision the IP separately. The compute guys have to provision the compute separately, and so on and so on. With the new way of software defined, everything was automated, and with the new structure, they have an architect who actually looks after the whole stack end to end, and they can provision this. Unless the structure was in place, you would have had very good capability, but you would have not been able to leverage that.
To execute on this. No, that's a great point. Now, I would like to change the stage. I know we have room for questions and discussion point, but if it's possible that we have mics around, so we're gonna, a couple of minutes, we're gonna open it for discussion. But before moving to the discussion side and questions, so if we could we need to understand the business and the services and the team, manage the team, and put the services and all those businesses in place in order to transform. Now, is it possible to give an example of something went wrong, even if you have the objective, but didn't do well, and there is a major loss in businesses? Because we would like to be transformed, but sometimes we didn't do it right. So can we have an example as such? Nigel, would you be?
Yeah, so there's this will be the subject of a book one day, because it's sometimes when you go into this in the early phases of these changes, you don't fully understand the landscape that you're operating in. And there's an example of a UK bank that produced one of the first peer-to-peer mobile payment applications. And the idea very simply was that if you were a consumer of a service of this bank and the person you were talking to was the same, you could use an application to effectively transfer funds within the constraints of that bank. To do this, the bank set aside a team of pioneers who created an application. They created a user experience. They took elements of this bank's business process and they put it into code. And they let that code loose in the App Store. User adoption was strong. The application was broadly reported in the UK press. It was deemed to be a success.
So this is a success story?
Well,
okay.
It broke every principle and every process the bank had in place. So when the pioneering team finished the project and handed it over to the settlers and the town planners, they were unable to operate the thing that had been built.
Why?
Because the infrastructure they'd chosen, the technology chosen, the languages they'd used to write it, the principles and processes they'd put in place didn't conform to the way that the bank operated. So they had people that didn't understand it, they had processes that couldn't be supported, and they had, effectively, as you hand over the thing that the consumer thinks is brilliant to the team that have to own and then manage it, it broke.
So what you're saying, in order to realize the full benefit of a transformation, you can't do it in silos or only part of your business.
So the theory is, if you want to create a lot of innovation just let a bunch of innovators go away and innovate stuff, they'll produce something magical, and ta-da, it's all finished. Well, it isn't. That's day one. Day 360 is how you manage it, how you work with the regulator, how you operate it, how you maintain it, all of the things that you need to do as a system of record to prove to an auditor that what's just happened is valid, right? So the trick, the reason it broke is because what the organization didn't understand was how the principle of scaling worked.
Okay.
If you are going to let innovators loose in your organization, make sure that they are connected back into the mainstream organization. Because if they are allowed to go and create stuff on their own, they will do just that. The problem is, the process in the organization that's left behind is often not able to sustain it. And it's a real tightrope walk between generating true innovation and being able to actually manage the fallout from that innovation. The fallout in this particular case, the leader of that team left, the leader of the team that was asked to manage and operate left. So two of the most valuable pieces of intellectual property, people, left the business as a result of the failure to be able to implement this after the innovators had created.
So the intention was great.
The intention is fantastic.
But the result was
failure. If you innovate in an island, you've got a lot of sea around you. And that's not always a great place to be.
I think with this note, I think we could have so many different questions from the audience. So please feel free to challenge our panelists. They're ready. They have their armor ready. So shoot difficult questions. And the more difficult question we have, you could win, your prizes, your chances of winning could be higher. So who would have the first questions from the audience? 1, 2, here. Go ahead.
Good evening.
If you could start by introducing yourself and lowering your...
Okay. My name is Isa Abdul Ahad from Arabic Computer System. I've been in the Gulf 32 years working in the IT. It's a big challenge, definitely the digital transformation. My question to our colleague, did the message, digital transformation message, reach the society, the IT companies, the retailer, the business people? That's the message I want to hear, the response.
If I could repeat the question, did the message of the IT transformation or digital transfer reach to the society
the business people,
and businesses and at scale? So,
and let's be transparent, because it happened 1 year ago. Our pre-sales start talking about digital transformation. We have to move, do business, and nobody understands digital transformation. Where we stand now? Okay, are we there? Are we 50%? Are we 20%? Where we stand? And let's be frank on that.
So, okay, frank is a priority. So the question is, did the community reach to what is IT transformation? And do we see value of it? Who would take this? Walid?
Okay, I've actually been reflecting on
and he says
what is IT transformation.
And he says honest.
I will be very honest. Inshallah, I'm always honest. But there have been so many definitions, but I have a definition that tells you whether you really have transformed your IT or not. And this is based on what we do in IT today. So what do we do in IT today are around 4 main categories of activities. IT does business projects. So your business are asking you to deliver certain business projects. They do IT projects, okay? They manage operations, and they manage unplanned events. God forbid disasters or any failures or anything. Fundamentally, these are the 4 things that IT do today. If you are successful in delivering an IT transformation, you should maximize the effort you put on your business projects and minimize the effort you put on everything else, i.e. technical or IT projects, as well as operational effort, as well as managing or reducing the unplanned work. So on a very abstract level, If you want to measure how successful you are as an IT, you need to look at those 4 categories and see how much impact you have made by transforming your IT. So and the second question is, if I understood it correctly, and just I want to, being mindful of the time, to give also my colleagues the time to respond. I will do it offline if you don't mind.
There is a video recording.
To avoid
this session will be broadcasted.
All right. So, being in realistic situations, I've only seen so far, IT have been realizing the benefit and the need of transformation when they are under pain or severe pressure from the business to deliver. I haven't seen yet, and this is to relate to your request to be honest, although there are a lot of those who are proactive in being ready, simply because they have not shown the business value to the CFO or to the IT. Keep in mind that when IT succeeds in delivering the message, they need to make sure that the CFO do not see them as a cost center. The CFO should, if you're successful in promoting your value, the CFO will see you as a change agent, an enabler for the business. And not a lot of CFOs today see this. And IT only starts transforming when they are under pain or pressure. And I'll hand over to my colleagues because
Fadi, would you share your honest experience?
Yeah, of course.
And I'm talking about this region because I actually travel across Africa, Middle East, and Turkey a lot every week, and I'm trying to be honest.
You always do.
Thank you.
Okay, so I might also have heard as well that part of the question was whether the message of transformation has been absorbed by the community as well, and whether executives I think understand this message. And I think that's an important question. You know, the question whether to transform or not to transform, and you know, without necessarily oversimplifying this matter, is usually around, you know, time to value. So as a company, and this is what executives would be interested in, as a company, are we able to deliver value in a time frame that is acceptable by our customers, right? Because if the answer is no, most probably some competitor is
taking advantage,
is gaining ground, right? And if the answer is yes, it means perhaps the reasons or the foundations of transformation are not there. So this is maybe one of the questions that executives look at. But again, it's also important to work with executives to understand, you know, the values of transformation to the overall organization. And we've realized that sometimes maybe we start with IT departments and maybe with more technical disciplines, you know, and we try to work with those entities to transform, because usually those guys feel the pain, or they're always feeling the pain, you know. So we usually work with those. And what is in many occasions missing is the executive umbrella on top of this. So one of the aspects that we try to work on is to run workshops with executives around transformation and highlighting the business value of transformation, and also highlighting the various approaches of transformation. So we never think of transformation as go and, you know, maybe the American term is boil the ocean approach, right? So transformation is a journey, and it's maybe best consumed in small pieces and in small steps.
So with this, it's not easy to transform. We need to do a lot of effort convincing the management and seeing the value of it, and we need to take it further by delivering workshops and understanding, so we could understand that.
Absolutely.
Well, look, the only people who worry about IT transformation are people in IT. There's a very simple principle that you can apply. The simple principle is, as you transform this thing that you have into a service, did more people consume it? And crucially, was it easier for them to consume? right? You look at the airline industry. You don't have to go back too far to realize how difficult it was to book an airline ticket. You look at how ridiculously easy it is now to book an airline ticket, right?
Absolutely.
So in the process of taking the thing that was an airline ticket and putting it in lines of code, the thing that we actually learned to do was remove the friction between the person consuming the airline ticket and the service provider of the airline ticket. So we might get tied up in knots about how we transform as IT. We're the only people who worry about it.
Absolutely.
The constituent people who consume the service, if what you did after the transformation is easier to consume than it was before, big tick, move on.
Absolutely. I mean, and also I could add this point to show how is the normal consumer. If you look at the example of Uber or Airbnb or even WhatsApp, there is even what we are holding in our hands. There is a major corporation went because they didn't transfer. And new companies who didn't hope and fear and ambitions and innovations become from nowhere to a major corporation. And I love this example by highlighting what WhatsApp did in the industry. How much WhatsApp been sold? It was sold for $19 billion. How many employees they have? 70. So imagine each individual contributing to the value of the company, and all what they do is transformation to the digital transformation. And so it's not a business hype, it's a realistic. If you don't take it seriously, a big impact could happen to your corporation. So with this, we could move to the next question, but we're done, huh? One more short questions.
Assalamu alaikum. Muhammad Adlani.
Marhabtain.
Enterprise architect in the Technical and Vocational Training Corporation.
Marhabtain.
I will bring to the table a practical experience with the digital transformation. We started 2 years ago with ambitious plan to transform the, let's say, the core business of TVTC in order to deliver the, let's say, the training, diversify the offering, diversified.
So the question is?
Diversified the population. And we face a major problem is when you take a global and holistic approach, usually you stuck with the, I mean, people want to see tangible things and quick wins.
Okay.
My question is, isn't a wise decision to move in tactical approach, a pure tactical approach, narrow scope on small projects, focus on small benefits and value added, then follow the snowball effects rather than to start thinking big and maybe land with struggling with a huge vision to transform the business using the technology.
So if I could repeat your question, is it viable to start small, tactical, rather than a big bang or a wider vision? So Walid, would you?
I absolutely agree. I mean, boiling the ocean, as Fadi mentioned, is going to be very unlikely to succeed, especially, and let's differentiate between two things. If you're a greenfield, and very few of us actually come from a greenfield or are building a new, and even in a greenfield, but it's even more difficult in a brownfield or an existing environment to do a very significant or very large-scale type of transformation. You need to pick, and the reason for that is not because of the technology. It's because of the intellectual property and the learning curve, the mind shift that we have to go through to actually build that kind or deliver that kind of transformation. And I will give you a practical example similar to what you have mentioned. In one of the large banks, they wanted to build new digital apps, all right? They there was no real deep discussions with the business on the business priorities and what are the immediate service that they need to provide. B, when they started developing digital native cloud applications, although they wanted to do the agile and all the sprints and all these kind of things, their culture, they were not culturally ready for that. They were still insisting on the regulations of testing after developing and then releasing to the production.
Methodology.
It's exactly the same waterfall approach that they used to apply on the traditional application, and it simply failed. So as Nigel said, you need to actually probably create a smaller group of innovators, focus on a smaller initiative, create that success, learn how you can actually achieve it, and then build on that success by dividing your initiatives or your plan into small pieces that can be achieved. Baby steps are much more efficient and likely to succeed than the boiling the ocean approach.
Now, with this note, I mean, we are very lucky to live at the current times that we are living in, especially in Saudi. We had a great vision, we have a great vision, it's very ambitious. And I would like to challenge the panelists what we could do in order to strive to this ambitious plan 2020 and 2030. From your perspective, Fadi, what we can do here in Saudi to move with the digital transformation? What are the advice that every one of our audience will take home?
Okay, so I feel as pivotal. So our mission is to help organizations or customers become learning organizations, and this is important because learning is not a one-time endeavor. It's a continuous thing, and learning involves trial and error, involves failing, involves learning from failure, and the only way that one can succeed in that is by being able to iterate in a fast way. So if there is anything that I believe we can assist and help with, is we can enable organizations to move at high velocity.
So what's your advice?
My advice is adopt learning and do not be afraid of failure. And after failure, there is always success, as long as you learn from those failures. But it's very important to experiment and to learn.
Excellent. So adopt learning in your organization. This will help you move forward. And I will advise you all to look at Pivotal Labs. You will be amazed at the culture that they're creating. Look at YouTube, what is Pivotal Labs, and you could contact Fadi for further information. Nigel, what is your advice to KSAs related to 2020 and 2030 vision?
So firstly, you have a vision.
Absolutely.
You have a date. You have a set of achievements that you wish to accomplish by that period of time. I think there were 12 or 16 of them that were presented earlier.
Absolutely.
So in part answer to the question, I disagree. You do need a vision. Doing this in small pieces is not the way to go. My advice is be inclusive. There are people who will not want to get on board with what you are doing. Do not put them in the cold. Do not alienate them. They are not a problem. They are people that you have to convince to your side of the argument. So as you move forward, be it a nation, state, or a company, you must be inclusive of what it is that you're trying to achieve, and you have to get everybody on board what the vision is. Because the only way you truly change is when people look back at that date and realize there was a pivotal, no pun intended, moment at which things changed. To do that, you've got to get everybody on board. So be inclusive in the strategies and how you implement and change those strategies, be it in your IT organization, your HR organization, your sales organization, but be inclusive.
So we have keep learning, be inclusive, cover everyone, don't leave someone isolated in the business. Walid, what's your take? What's your advice?
Okay, on an IT of an organization level, I think be closer to your business. And, you know, it's in line with being inclusive, because you need to have that conversation on the business and really understand from the business and what are those transformational opportunities that you have, and what are their pain points more than any time in the past. All right, so on that, on an organization level, be closer, and then based on that, based on your understanding, you're going to be able to drive a lot of changes within the IT, keeping in line with those business priorities. Okay. On a national level, because I also had the privilege and honor to talk to the National Digitalization Unit. It's a much bigger, let's say, scale, and I would think of three things. Empower your, and this is happening. I'm not suggesting that this is not happening, and I was really impressed and proud to hear this, but we need to do more and more. Empower your different government departments to innovate and let them focus on their core business, and the IT thing will be done by others.
The experts.
Right? Yeah, so empower them by educating on the capabilities of how far they can go, and by also working with them on a strategy that will be executed in pieces, but of course it's still a complete strategy, and that is and one thing. Empower also requires education. So focus on education and bringing this new generation that are more digitally savvy than the previous generations. They can do things, and someone mentioned that in the beginning of this session in the morning, 25% of the jobs that we will have in 20 years later will be completely different. So there is this change coming, and this requires a lot of empowering from an educational perspective.
Third,
collaborate. So to create a digital society, no one by himself or herself or a single entity can do this alone. So collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. By understanding, while you're collaborating, you need to understand also where do we start, where do we stop, and how we complement each other.
Excellent.
Okay?
Thank you so much. So we have learning, being inclusive, and close to the business with alignment and focus on the learning. So with this, I would like to thank our senior executive to making this happen. This is part of DELL EMC commitment to the region, that we encourage innovations and participation. So please feel free to reach our panelists and our extended team in the panel for more information, how they could help you and enable you for digital transformations. And with this, we would like to have a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much for your attendance. It's been a great day. Hopefully, we could capitalize on it and build on it. Thank you so much.